right, let's get going. So yes, thanks everyone for attending today, our first call of 2023. And I guess this kicks off the third season, I guess, since we started in, I believe it was January of 2020. So this would be the third season of our Portals community calls. Today, our topic is going to be Power Pages templates. So we're going to dive into some of the new templates that Microsoft has made available through Power Pages. So that's the plan for today. We do have a bit of news to go through, and we will leave room for Q&A as well. So that's the plan for today. Now, if you do have any questions, please there's the questions block that you can put your notes into, and I will do my best to keep an eye on that as well. Okay, so quick introduction for those of you who are new here or may not know who I am. My name is Nicholas Hayduk. I am the president and a software engineer at Engineered Code Consulting Inc., based here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm a Microsoft MVP and have essentially spent my entire career working with the Power Pages platform, which is known under various names of Power Apps Portals, Dynamics 365 Portals, and way back in the day as ADX Studio Portal. So I did start my career with ADX Studio, so I've been working with this stuff a long time. I apologize in advance if there's any wheezing or coughing here. I am just recovering from a little light cold, but should be able to make it through today without too much of a problem. So if you do want to connect with me, I promise you can't catch anything from me that way. I do have LinkedIn that I keep up to date with, as well as a Twitter account for Engineered Code. I've got a blog as well as YouTube channel. That YouTube channel posts the recordings of all of these community calls, as well as our weekly tips that we typically release on Tuesdays. We're almost at tip 200. We've got tip 200 all recorded and queued up and ready to go. So it's kind of crazy that we've been doing it this long, that we've got 200 of those tips out there, but so you can look forward to that. We've also got the podcast, so the Refresh the Cache podcast that I co-host with George Dubinsky. That is available on the CRM audio network, so you can check that out. We just released a new podcast, I think it was last week, where we interviewed Dilip Singh, who is kind of the one of the main program managers at Microsoft for Power Pages. So he's been the head guy for Power Pages for a long time. So he has all the inside details. So you can check that out. And we've got at least, I think, a couple more recorded already that are in the queue. So over the next few weeks, you can look out for some more Power Page podcasts available at CRM Audio. All right. I always just want to say, express my gratitude to Jason Gumper and the team at MS Dynamics World for their support with these community calls. They've been there since day one. They've been hugely supportive. Basically always saying yes to whatever we need. So thank you to Jason. And if you're not already subscribed to MS Dynamics World, you're missing out on some great news and all the other stuff that him and his team do over at MS Dynamics World. All right, so let's talk about the agenda for today. So we do have a couple of 2 or 3 items, I believe, after which we will flip over to our topic, which is the Power Pages templates. And we will then talk about what is the date and time of the next one, which it's only a few weeks away, actually. Spoiler alert. We're going to do a little bit earlier on in February just because of some vacations and some other conflicts. So we're going to get that done a little earlier in February. And then, as always, we'll leave some time for Q&A. If there's questions, we can definitely answer those, whether they're about today's topic or anything else Power Pages related. All right, let's talk about what do we have for news. So a couple things that were announced on the blog, and that's kind of the powerpages.microsoft.com, the blog that's available there. That's kind of your primary resource for getting the latest kind of updates and news from the Power Pages product team. So a couple things that were in there since last time we chatted back in November. One of those is that Power Pages is now GA in the US government clouds. So That may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but for some people, that's a huge deal. So if they're working in any of those kind of sovereign clouds in the US, Power Pages is available in those. So that's a great step forward for any of the people working in the government clouds in the US. The other item that's a little bit more recent, I think it was in the last week or two, was the what they're calling the improved Dataverse connection using application user. So this is all about what user is connecting to Dataverse from your Power Pages site. So for those of you who have kind of looked into this, you might know that right now, before this change was made, all of the updates, creating records, deleting records, all those operations happen in the context of basically it was a system user. And it was kind of one system user shared by all of the sites that you might have had for a single instance within a particular environment. Now, what Microsoft is moving towards is actually creating true kind of application users. So essentially creating the apps in Azure Active Directory and creating real kind of application users. And what that allows you to do is, and there'll be one of those per Power Pages site. So what that allows you to do is, you'll be able to see kind of different users will be, having the different, there'll be different stats for them to tracking how many API hits. So when you have users who may be kind of consuming a lot of API, it's a lot easier to tell which portal or which site it's coming from. So this just kind of moves on to the kind of the more common way of building integration with Dataverse, and that is to use those application users instead of those system users, which is kind of a behind the scenes workaround that the product team had that not the rest of the world might have had. So they are changing that out. I believe over the next few weeks, that's going to be just kind of the default for new sites that are coming up, and everyone who's got existing Power Pages sites will get transitioned to that new model at some point here as well. So you will see kind of in Dataverse, you'll see different users, different application users per portal that you're working in. So yeah, that was a kind of a, it's not a huge change, but it's an important change to kind of bring it in line with kind of best practices these days. So it's nice to see. The next thing that we have here is the ability to select your solution in the data workspace. And maybe once I get into the actual templates, I might just kind of show you how this works. But one of the big complaints, and honestly, we've had this for a long time, as soon as we, as MVPs, kind of saw the ability to edit tables and columns and stuff directly in the Power Pages Studio, the first thing that came up is, well, but how do we select which solution? And basically, it was going into a default solution, which none of us really wanted. So I would say that wasn't a very widely used feature, because we always want to make sure that our configurations to Dataverse are done in a specific solution so that we can move them between environments. Well, the good news is now you are able to select, when you are in that data workspace, you'll be able to select which solution those changes are made in. So that's a huge step forward. It'll go from a feature that I think a lot of people were avoiding to a feature that a lot of people will use, because now you're kind of one click away from doing it, but you can do it properly. Whereas before it was convenient, but in order to do it properly, then you would have to go back into your solutions and add it. It was not ideal. So this should get a lot of people using that data workspace in Power Pages. So those are the items for this month. Again, available in the US government clouds. That's a big deal if you're in the government clouds. Changing the way that Dataverse Connected connects to Power Pages. Just one other thing I should mention there is, I mean, hopefully you don't, but if you have any workflows that run depending on specific users, just be aware that those users are changing. So something to consider as well. And then again, the ability to select your solution in the data workspace. A small change, but a very, very significant change in terms of, I think, how people will use that. I think you'll get a lot more people, especially as MVPs, recommending that you can use that now, versus before it was kind of like, yeah, it's cool that it's there, but hard to recommend it when you're not following some of the ALM best practices in terms of having things in solutions. So that's what's kind of new over the last, I guess it would be a couple months since we last chatted in November. So moving on, let's talk about today's topic, and that is Power Pages templates. So this is an area that I've done quite a bit of digging into over the last few weeks. You may start to notice a trend. I have a number of tips coming up that will be about Power Pages templates. We did one of I think our next podcast that will be released is on Power Pages templates. So hopefully this is what people are interested in, because we do have a lot of content coming out here very soon about Power Pages templates. So I don't have any slides today. I'm just going to kind of bring up my instance here, and we'll just look at it in real life. I'm going to find the right screen here. Okay, so when I'm going to do this, I'm going to open up make.powerpages.microsoft.com. So what do I mean when I say templates? So the word template gets used a lot in the Power Pages space. So what we're not talking about web templates and Liquid. We're not talking about page templates in the kind of the CMS side of things. What we're talking about are the templates that you can use when you create one of your new Power Pages sites. So you'll see here, I've gone to make.powerpages.microsoft.com. And you can see here I have a number of different sites that have been created. If I want to create a new site, when I create a new site, what I have to do is I have to pick a template to start from. So you can see here I've got a number of different templates that I can choose between. So this is kind of one way to do it if you go to create site. The other option is if I go just back to my main page here, back. So if I just go to templates, that's another place where you can see the list, and you can create one here as well. So I can say choose this template, and that's basically going to walk me through the process of creating a new template. So what I want to go through is some of the different kind of groupings of these templates, because there are some different categories in here, and I think it's important to kind of demonstrate what some of these things are. So the first ones I'm going to look at are the site design templates. So what I'm looking at here are all the templates that are available to me in this particular environment. So if I click site design, that's going to limit it to these ones. Now these site design templates, these are really more about the look and feel layout, primarily of the home page of the site. So these ones are not business use case templates. They're not building out any particular applications. It's more about the look and feel of the site. So you can see here that we've got 5 of these. So site design 01, 002, 003, all the way up to 5. Plus we have a blank one, which is essentially empty. So these are the ones that you're going to want to pick if you don't find yourself in one of the situations that we'll talk about next, because all the other templates are all about specific business cases that Microsoft has implemented for you, and they're great if you want them, but if those aren't your use cases, then you're probably better off starting with one of these, because there's just kind of less extra fun in them that you probably don't need. So in terms of which one you want to use in here, it's really just about picking one that maybe has the the layout for your homepage that you're interested in. Again, the colors are not that critical because the theming engine lets you change that. So it's really about picking a layout that I think is the closest to the one you want. If you're a partner, you're doing a bunch of these, you'll probably just get used you'll pick one that you like, and you'll just you probably just get used to picking one and kind of going forward with that. The other thing I want to click on here is Dynamics 365. Now, this isn't going to work for me here because this environment that I have is not Dynamics 365 enabled. So this is just a pure Dataverse environment, so kind of a vanilla Dataverse environment. So I don't see the list of templates here. What I'm going to try and do here is going to bring up another environment just so that we can see it, and I can show you what those templates are. Bring it up here. Okay. So this one environment here, this is one from this is the one that we use for all the videos and stuff, which is a Dynamics 365 enabled environment. When I click on Dynamics 365, you'll actually see a number of other options. So these ones, a lot of these you'll probably recognize if you've been using the Dynamics 365 portals or Power Apps portals. these are the ones that we used to get to pick from. We used to get to pick from the starter or the basic portal, customer self-service, employee self-service, field service, community. These are the portals here. So you'll notice we got community, we got customer self-service, employee self-service, partner. These are the different portals. Now you'll notice that there are a few new ones. So before we used to have 5, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 3 new ones. We've got, there's order returns, modern community, and we've got a customer portal. So it looks like this one is new. So this is, I think, the one that ties over with F&O perhaps. So community, customer self-service, employee self-service, and partner portal are the old ones. You don't see basic portal because it's another list. But the new ones here are order returns, field service, modern community, and customer portal. So if you click on, say, employee self-service portal, you're going to basically get what you used to get with the other ones. So this is the way that you access those old templates from the World Dynamics 365. So the good news is those aren't gone. They're just, another example of a template. Now, if we go back to this where we've got all the lists, so there are, last time I checked, I'm just going to double check here because this list, one of the things about these templates is that they really can, Microsoft can kind of introduce these whenever. So it's possible every time you come here, maybe there's more in here. But last time I checked, there were 3 additional templates that were actual business scenarios where Microsoft had kind of built out these specific examples. So this one is scheduling a meeting with a financial institution. We've got another one that is building permits. So someone online can fill out a building permit application. And then the last one here is the after-school program registration. So those are kind of the 3 that I want to get into because there's actually some kind of interesting functionality in there. There's interesting ways that they've built out these portals. So those are the 3 that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more once we kind of finish this general review. But so what we have is, again, we have the design templates, which are really just kind of look and feel, color type things. We've got the Dynamics 365 templates, which are available only if your Dataverse environment has Dynamics installed in it. And in there we've got, the old ones that we used to always have, and then a few new ones. And then we've got 3 of these other ones, which are very kind of business use case, building out those, which is the permit application, the after-school program registration, and the schedule meeting with a financial institution. Okay, so I'm going to check the questions here. So I do have one question. Are there templates to assist with payment portals? Unfortunately, no, none of these ones have payments into them. I'm trying to think of like the building permit application and the schedule meeting with the financial institution do use like forms to submit stuff, and they all kind of use the web API quite a bit. So you could probably learn something on how to do that, but none of them have a specific example of how to integrate payment, unfortunately. It does seem like payment is a question that comes up very, very frequently. And I know that that's a topic that I think George and I might cover in a future podcast. And it was a topic that we covered a few months ago on our community call. Okay, so what happens when we install one of these templates? For any of these 3 that are actually building out new business use case scenarios, as well as the Dynamics templates, what you're installing is a number of things. So if your Dataverse environment doesn't already have all of the Power Pages solutions in there, it's going to do that. And that's, dozens of solutions that go in there. So there's quite a few solutions in there. But if you do pick one of these specific scenarios, say like the build permit application, it does come with extra tables, extra forms, extra fields, all that sort of business or Dataverse configuration that was necessary for them to create as part of that specific scenario. So when you install one of these portals or one of these templates, if you already have data or already have Power Pages in that environment, then it's only going to install those additional solutions that are necessary for that situation. So as an example, if I go into make.powerapps.com and I go into solutions. I want to make sure I'm in the right environment. Yep. I go into solutions. You'll see here that when I first started investigating these a few weeks ago, these are what got installed. So we have, this one was associated with the, I think that was the program registration, portal site-wide. Yeah, and then, so that was the, program registration. Then we had building permit, and then we had the book a meeting. So they do install additional solutions. Those solutions also contain a number of PCF controls. So we'll look at that here in a second. But one of the ways that they use some of this functionality, and kind of alluded to it with the payment portal, but one way to achieve payment on your portal is to implement some code in a PCF control. So within these solutions, we've got tables, we've got columns and views and all those sorts of things, but we've also got some PCF controls because PCF controls are basically widely supported in the portal now. You can include them on data sets and forms and within Liquid, so there's lots of different ways to include PCF controls. So that's, and those are delivered in solutions. So something to keep an eye on as well. So when these when these templates are installed in your Dataverse environment, Microsoft is going to add whatever solutions are necessary. So maybe all the Power Pages ones, or just if you already have those, the extra ones that are needed for that specific template. Then they're going to install all of the data that's associated with that template. So in the same way that the old Dynamics 365 portals templates were a whole bunch of web pages, content snippets, site settings, web templates, page templates, all of that data, it's the same idea here. So these templates are essentially a set of Power Pages configuration data and Power Pages solutions that all tie together to create those sites. Now, the big thing I like about these new templates, which wasn't necessarily true about the old Dynamics 365 templates, is that the old Dynamics 365 templates, a lot of them actually relied on functionality that you couldn't really build yourself. So things like discussion forums or the knowledge base article, they were built using the ASPX templates that were only available in the site code, which we haven't had access to in like 10 years now. That's not the case with these new templates that Microsoft has built. They are only using techniques, as far as I've seen, they're only using techniques that you as, not as Microsoft, but you as anyone could go in there and build yourself. So what they are is they're either using lists and forms, they're using Web API, they're using Liquid, they're using techniques that are available to everyone in order to build out this functionality. So that makes them a great way to learn this platform, especially if you're more on the pro code side of things, because again, they do quite a bit of Liquid, JavaScript, Web API, those types of things. Okay, so see, I got a couple questions here. So does the book a meeting when leverage Microsoft Booking, or is it a standalone solution? The book a meeting is a standalone solution. It creates appointment records, as well as there's like appointment requests. So there's I think a couple custom tables, as well as using the out-of-the-box appointment table. But yeah, it's not using Microsoft Booking. In fact, the interface to make a booking uses both, there's some web resources in there because you can include a web resource on a form, and there are also PCF controls in there. So the booking functionality is, I believe, it's a combination of web resources and PCF controls. All right, I would like to use Power Pages for a customer self-service site. However, our ERP is based on on-prem SQL Server. Is there a way to migrate our selected tables to Dataverse and keep this in sync with on-prem SQL tables? Is there a way? Probably. Can you keep Dataverse in sync with on-prem SQL? Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. To me, when people come to me with Power Pages and they say the data isn't Dataverse, I always question whether Power Pages is the right fit. To me, the power of Power Pages is that the data, it's great for exposing data that's in Dataverse. Now, if there's no value that data being in Dataverse, except for the fact that using Power Pages, might be other tools out there that are a benefit. But if this is kind of step one of kind of moving from on-prem SQL to Dataverse, well then I can see it. But yeah, if you're looking to integrate on-prem SQL with Dataverse, you can look at things like Kingswaysoft or Azure Data Factory or any there's a ton of different data integration pieces, but those are not really particular to Power Pages. Anything that gets that data into Dataverse is going to be fine for Power Pages because Power Pages really wants to do that. The other option you could potentially consider is virtual tables. Virtual tables are a way that you can, excuse me, virtual tables are a way that you can expose records from a different database into Dataverse, and so Power Pages is kind of fully supportive of virtual tables as well. So again, something you consider, but you also have to kind of do kind of a sanity check to say, okay, if the data isn't already in Dataverse, why am I picking Power Pages? All right, so why don't we just take a quick peek at what some of these templates actually do. So why don't we start off with this is book a meeting, after school program. So let's take a quick look at the after school program template. Now, I'm trying to think if it's I believe all of them generally have multiple persona that are being considered in that portal. So in the case of the after school program, you'll notice that with all these templates, there's never an idea. They never kind of require you to use a model-driven app or make kind of configuration in Dataverse directly. So as an example, when we talk about the after school program, one of the things that you have to do is you have to manage the events or the courses that people are attending. So in order to do that, they've given you another interface to log in as an administrator to manage those things. So another way to have done that is you could maybe make a model-driven app that the school administrators could have used, but in all these kind of portals or Power Pages templates, they've said, hey, we want all of our users to be using Power Pages. So in all these cases, there's kind of a regular user type interface, and there's usually a back-end interface, all built within the portal. So in this particular example, so it's after school events. I'm not currently logged in, so what I'll do is I'll just see if there's any events in here that I'm interested in. So I just switched the season to fall, and I can see here I've got a number of events that I, in theory, could register for. Now, in order to register, I do have to log in, so why don't I do that? Click that to sign in. I can click that button. I'm gonna go here. So now going back to here, I have these options to register. So if I say click on Spanish class, I have this button to register. Now, if I click register, just waiting here, so it's adding. Now there's a number of that exist. So you can see that there's 15 spots. There's a registration deadline. There's a whole bunch of functionality built into here to kind of determine whether someone is able to register. So what I just want to do quickly is go into portal records, code editor, and I'm going to load these. So I just want to kind of show you quickly behind the scenes how a page like that has been built by the team at Microsoft. So within the after school program, I look at web pages and I'm looking at a view course details, content. So here's the actual page here. So you can see back to events catalog, and you see include view course details. So that means that this is located within a web template. Look for the view course details in the web template. So you can see here they're using a bunch of liquid to query information about the course, people who are registered. Quite a bit of liquid in here. Now, in terms of the actual registration button, I believe, so we got the site markers, and then you can see in here, what they're actually then doing is they're going into snippets. So within the snippets, we got the card details. I'm gonna go up into here, into content snippets, card details, and this is where we have, say, the details of the course. So here we have a bunch of we have a bunch of markup for whether someone can register or not. So you can see they have like if user, they can register, otherwise they have a button that says sign in, sign out. Now the actual JavaScript, here's the JavaScript that controls whether someone can log or register or not. So you can see when someone clicks that register button, there is web API requests that go out to determine how full they are, whether they're spots, and you can see there's a bunch of like message handling here. Course is full, the registration deadline has passed. All this stuff that is handled in the web API. So that's a pretty consistent theme across all these templates. A lot of it is kind of web API done. It's done with web API. So yeah, so depending on when the course is for, there'll be a bunch of different in here to determine whether I can register or not. One thing that's a little bit different about this after school registration template that is different from just regular event registration is that you can add multiple attendees. So, and this makes sense because you do have parents with multiple children that they would want to register. So it's not just like a register for myself. You're actually able to manage your registrations and for multiple people. So in this case, I'm going to do this to see the fact that I've registered for this dance class. The other thing I can do is if I do in here, I can go to my attendee information, and this is where I can add more children. So I can go into here, I can say child 2, I can put a date of birth, I can click add. And so this is using iframes and a bunch of different things to create this. But now it's created this record in Dataverse. And now if I were to go, say again, try to register for, say, that Spanish class, I'm trying to decide if, go to this one. See, this is probably good just because the time has, because the registration date has probably expired. Don't know if there's any in here right now that I could register for. Sign up. But that would be kind of the experience for that. Once you click the add attendee, you're kind of prompted to pick which attendees do you want, and then you can register that way. And again, you can see your registration. So now you can see here, I actually have multiple different people. If I were to manage my attendees, I can actually have different pictures for them as well. So that's what this thing right here, and I believe that this is a PCF control that they've included in here. So in terms of like, as a parent, what can I do? Really, it's like search for events, I can register for events, I can view my registrations, and I can manage my attendees. Now let's see if the other thing I can do is my user also has an additional web role that makes me a school administrator. So the way I can see all the courses and manage these courses is via this particular interface. So if you're not familiar, this is a list. So this is using like what used to be known as entity lists. So this is just a list of all the courses, and this is using the out-of-the-box filtering functionality that you can turn on. But let's just say, let me go to Spanish class, just see if I can get that. I suspect we might just have a registration date that's out. So registration deadline. Let's make that, and let's just change some days in there. And update. Oh, category is a required field. Okay. Oh, I don't have any categories. Well, that's the problem. Not something I'm going to fix right now. But so what I find very interesting about this implementation, the way that they've done it, is this is an entity form or a basic form, or I think just a form as they call it now, as opposed to a multi-step form. But the way that they do this is quite interesting. So if I look at the web page for, where are we here? Admin, edit course. So this thing does display the entity form named ASP edit form. However, when you click the update button, it's not performing a regular post, like it doesn't submit the form. It's actually a custom button that is handled with Ajax and using the web API to actually update. So they're essentially using the basic form functionality to render the original form and to pre-fill it with all the details. But then when you save it, they actually are saving it themselves using a web API request. So I found that very interesting. I'd never kind of really even considered that technique before, but they're using the basic form to create the form, to pre-populate it, but the actual saving is handled by their own web API requests. So they basically construct this object, grabbing all the details from the form, and then submitting a patch request using the web API. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they decided to do that. Any questions? Oh, can a SharePoint list or library be a virtual table? I believe the answer is, I mean, anything can be a virtual table. I don't know if there's anything out of the box that can do a SharePoint list. I don't know if it kind of wires in directly, but in theory, if you create your own virtual table provider, I think anything can be a virtual table. Okay, back to my portal here. So the other thing I want to point out here about this admin interface, and this is actually a technique or an architecture that we use quite a bit. When you'll notice that primarily the admin experience, which is generally users that you have more control over, you're able to train them. That's where we're using the out-of-the-box lists and forms. Whereas for the general public, where you may have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users that you just can't realistically train, and maybe the interface that comes with the lists and form functionality is quite up to what you'd want it to be, that's where they rely on a lot more custom JavaScript, the web API, PCF controls, that sort of thing. So it's a very common thing that we do as well, where when you have administrators, when you have kind of these known users that you've got that control over, that's who the lists are really good for, especially if those users are familiar with model-driven apps, because they're very familiar with that sort of interface anyway. But sometimes for doing things that, if you wanted to do an event registration where multiple attendees could be there, doing that without the box lists and forms, the experience just isn't going to be great. Like, it's going to be a lot more clicks than you may want for the public. So that's where it makes sense to invest in the in the custom JavaScript for the web API. Okay, well, let's look at the next one, which is building permit. Actually, before we do that, I'm just going to quickly show you before I forget. So this is the Power Pages Studio. You go into the data workspace, click this little button, that's where you can set your solution. So that's the new feature in here. So I could click this one, and then any of the solutions, any changes I make in here would be made under the context of that solution. So that's that new feature I was referring to earlier in the news. Okay. Now back to here. So the next template would be the building permit application. So why don't we take a peek at that one? All right, so as you might expect, this is targeted at cities, municipalities, other sort of government organizations that might require people to submit a permit. There's a few things in here. They do have some kind of content, data-driven content in here. So like the permit process and all these things are coming from actual tables. So for example, the common permits, there's a table for these in there. And so this, if we were to look at in our portal code editor, kind of collapse this one, open up the building permit, go to web pages, home, content. So we have our application filter web template. You can see here they're grabbing all the different application types and outputting those here. So rather than just being completely content or like completely through the content of the web page, they're actually pulling in results from the application type table, and they're displaying that as part of their template. So some nice liquid stuff there. The actual submission process, if I go to say default, and I want to, again, so this is a page here where it's talking about what the steps are and what, how you can step through the process and apply. But if I then click the apply button, it will provide me with a wizard to kind of step through. Now, I do have to be logged in, so why don't I do that? So you can see here, then I can fill out the details of this. So I can say test.com. Next, and we're basically walking through this multi-step wizard to fill out the permit request. So there is quite a bit of, I believe they've got some JavaScript and some stuff in here as well. Let's say deck. Next. The required documents, I think they're using, I think this is a PCF control in here, but basically you can go through this whole process and fill out the kind of multi-step wizard. And then, that's going to be admin home because I'm logged in as admin. Just go to sign out here for a second. I go to my permits, and then I log in, view my permits. So here are the permits that I've submitted. You can see this is the one I just created. I can see this is submitted, and I can withdraw. I can view my permit. This is again using kind of basic lists and forms. And then, as I mentioned, this one also has an admin side of it. So this is where, as an administrator, I can go in here and see, oh, this is submitted, and I can change the status. So I can say update status, say it's no, it's submitted, denied, submit, and so that one gets updated to denied, and we can see some of these other details update. So there's some liquid that generates this top section, and this is just using the standard form functionality. So this one is probably the simplest of the three. The last one that I'd show you will be the schedule a meeting with a financial institution. Now, this one is complicated in that there is essentially a long wizard of, it's a multi-step wizard, but there's a significant amount of JavaScript in this one. This interface, so you pick out what you want to talk about. This is all done with Web API and Liquid. So if I pick this one and this one, like see that was all a single step. There's JavaScript to automatically submit the form when you click on things. This is a PCF control where you can put in, I got to do the, I think that is, so you got to put in the right zip code because then it's finding the right branch locations. And so this is all a PCF control that's built into the form. Then we go to availability. And if I want to meet with a specific person, I can say no. And then the next screen is actually going to show me where I can book a date and time. Now, it looks like I do have some times there. So again, this is all a PCF control or a web resource. Again, I think this one might be a web resource. The other one was a PCF control. They kind of mix those two a little bit here. So I can book that spot. I can then fill in some details. Type mobile next. So this is kind of more of a standard page, and then we've got this appointment details. If there's anything else I want to know, and then I click submit. So, of the 7 steps, quite a few of them were just implemented with a bunch of custom JavaScript. There's some cool features in here, like the ability to add to calendar that actually goes to a template that produces like an iCal or an ICS or whatever it is. And they've got functionality here to reschedule. But again, what's cool about this is all the different kind of JavaScript that they've written. So the main thing I would take away from all of these templates, and I think in this one I could go back and probably see my appointments, and there's a few other things here. And the administrator side on this, what is it? Min. If I'm logged into this one, what I can see is I can actually adjust the availability of certain resources. So this is where I can go in and create people and say when they're available, and that drives another calendar. So for me, what's cool about these templates is, yeah, if you're a financial institution, for any other institution where you need to book calendars, it's possible, like, and especially of all the 3, this is probably the one that's most useful because, like booking calendars can be, done in many different, industries. But like after school program registration, I would say that there's so much in that template that's worth, like, how often would you actually start from that template? I don't know, like, but is there lots of things to learn in that template? Absolutely. If you're just getting started with Power Pages, it's great to go on there and explore how they've done things. If you're working on a lot of Power Pages site, go through these things and understand, hey, how did they accomplish this? How did they get that iframe to show up in that modal? How did they use a web API there? So they're great templates to learn from, and they're great templates to steal/borrow certain functionality from. But do I think that there's going to be a ton of people actually going in and saying, hey, I'm implementing the after school program template? Probably not. As I mentioned, it does come with extra solutions. Another thing I didn't mention is certain of these templates do come with cloud flows as well, so Power Automate cloud flows. Those are used, say, in the after school program for sending emails. So when you register, they'll send out confirmations, or if you have to cancel a course, they'll send out cancellation notices. So there's also some cloud flows in there that you can create as well. But I think they're good for demonstration purposes to show you what this product can do. But I think in the end, a lot of people, even if you have some of these bits and pieces that you want to use, you might be better off still creating kind of a basic site using one of the design templates and kind of grabbing the bits and pieces of code that you need, unless your scenario really fits into this. Okay, a couple questions here. Can we make our own templates? No, not like you can't add your own templates to the list. If you're an ISV and you want to add to that, that's just not something that's there right now. No, I think it's on its way anytime soon. I'm sure it's on the love to have long-term roadmap, but no, there's really no way right now as someone outside of Microsoft to create your own templates. I think, let's see. Then that's just a comment about the web API. So, okay, so I think that answers all the questions. We've kind of gone through the 3 templates that I wanted to go through. Again, I would really encourage you, like, there's a lot of cool little techniques that I learned by going through them. It's pretty clear, like, these were developed, I don't think, by the actual product team. So I think it was kind of people who were relatively new to the platform. So they might have used, they kind of came out with a different perspective. So, and you can tell, I think, if I had to guess, this one, the making a book, scheduling a meeting, was done by one team. I think maybe the 2 were done by a different team, but say, like, so the after school program and the building permit, there were some similarities in that one, and this one just looked a little bit different. So I'm kind of guessing that maybe this was done by a different team. But lots of cool ways to do things in here, and lots of stuff that can be borrowed or provide you with inspiration on how you might be able to do something similar yourself. So I will open the floor to some questions. I see there are some questions in here. Before I get to those questions, I'll just jump back to this and just say that our next call will be February 9th, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I think that's what, 2 or 3 weeks away. And as always, thank you to Jason and the team at MS Dynamics World. And we'll just go through these last questions here. All right. So I guess this is an off-topic question. Would it be feasible to have Power Pages designed to render nothing but a web form, anonymous, specifically oriented iframe on a different non-portal website? So Jim, so the question is it feasible to design a Power Pages site such that it doesn't really render anything but a web form, specifically for embedding as an iframe on a different non-portal website? Yes, we see that. I wouldn't say all the time, but many times we've seen that. There's a couple different options to consider. So you can, like, say, design a page template where you uncheck the use website header and footer. However, that usually leaves off a bunch of JavaScript. So usually what we see in those cases is you create a page, or you create your site, but the header and footer web templates, you just like clear it all out. And you even kind of remove all the Bootstrap containers, and then that site becomes, you just kind of drop the web form. So absolutely, you can do that, and I've seen people do that lots, where they're using Power Pages as an intake engine for the web forms. If you're doing it just for like a contact form, I would say that's probably overkill. There are other technologies that make it pretty simple to put a simple form on another website and have it ingest. But if you're building a more complex web form, it's certainly an option. You just have to be aware of anything in an iframe sometimes is going to play so well on responsiveness. So something to consider. And just know that there are other technologies out there that make it pretty simple to drop a form on a page that then goes into Dataverse. So for the next question, for the old template, specifically the community site, is all the code available, or does that one still use the hidden ASPX files? Yeah, so the old sites still do. So like the old community site is still uses those hidden ASPX files. Now that code is available if you ever want to look at it, but that you just can't change it. So that code was all included in the source code release when they did the version 8.2 of Power Pages was released. If you're looking for it, look up the XRM Community Edition. So you can see the code if you ever want to like see how it works, or if there's undocumented settings in there. In terms of changing stuff, yeah, you can. That's all in that code. That's not available. So I haven't played with the new Dynamics templates, so that there's a modern community site. So that one, I don't know. My guess is they haven't relied on that, but I don't know that for sure. Those are ones I haven't looked into yet. I've been focused so far on the templates that are available for Dataverse. All right. How many people do we still have? A few people online. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I thank everyone for joining us today for Power Pages templates. If you do have any suggestions for topics for February, I'm certainly open to those, and look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Nick, thanks again. Thanks to everyone in the audience. Just a note, we're going to be sending out a follow-up with the recording and information on next month's session too. With that, we will close out, I guess.